Well, welcome to Women on Wealth, episode 111. I'm Julina Ogilvy, and the title today is Cybersecurity at Home, What You Need to Know. And on this podcast, we talk a lot about embracing financial discussions, creating confidence, and these extend beyond investing and planning to how we protect our digital lives. And so in this episode, we're focusing on cybersecurities for individuals and families. We will have a follow-up podcast to discuss it with business owners, but we want to explore the everyday risks that people face, practical steps that they can help protect both personal and financial information. And to do this, because I cannot do this alone, I'm joined by Sam Disraelly, who is CEO of Your Tech Department, which is local here in Fairfield County, Connecticut. And he's going to help me, as well as everyone, make cybersecurity approachable, realistic, and actionable. I'm like nervous about this topic because I really need to know more. So thank you, Sam, for joining. We're excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, so before we get going, you have a story. So tell us about your story and how you came to be the CEO of this business.
Oh boy. Um, I that's the long I took the long way around to being an IT person. I was raised in a family of IT people. My parents were part of the first and second generation of computer programmers,
Both.
but my entire family has a very deep history of public service
Okay.
and community activism. So the two of those dovetailed a lot in my upbringing. And my father, as a programmer, ran his consulting business out of the basement. And I had growing up, I had a certain image of what being an IT person or an IT geek was. And I railed against it and I ran as far as I possibly could. I joined the Navy 4 days after high school graduation at the age of 17. My parents actually had to sign the papers.
Wow.
And the Navy gave me some tests and they said, you know what you'd be good at? Computers. But everybody on board a Navy ship is also a firefighter. So we call it in the Navy, we call it damage control.
Mhm.
And I enjoyed that working with my hands and emergency response. That was something I was also involved in as a youth. And I enjoyed that. And when I left the Navy, I joined the local fire department again, like a week after I got home.
Yeah.
And I was playing on the computer, and an executive in Con Air's IT department in Stamford, Connecticut, saw me tinkering around with the computer and said, "You apparently know what you're doing." And that actually, he had me come in for consulting. And I learned that being an IT person didn't necessarily mean being a programmer. I could actually help people, I could interact with people.
Okay.
And along the way, I shaped my image to a company that acts as uh, you know, being able to help people navigate the tumultuous experiences of having technology so integral in their lives.
Right.
And now I'm a family man. I have two kids and a wife, and uh, everything I do at home can translate, and I learn about protecting them in the home, and protecting my clients at their homes as well. So everything that I do in the office informs what I do in my personal life.
Yeah.
And everything I recommend, I've usually tested in my own home.
That's great. Well, first of all, thank you for your service. And it is a unique background. So,
Had a long course.
yeah, well, I've learned with this podcast that not everyone has a very direct route. That's for sure. So,
Oh yeah.
so what kind of cyber threats are everyday people most likely to run into?
The majority of cyber threats, there's two kinds of attacks. There's the hackers that are casting wide nets, seeing who falls into them.
Hmm.
And then, unfortunately, in a large part around here in Fairfield County, in Connecticut, the Northeast, especially the higher net worth individuals along the Gold Coast, there are targeted attacks where you end up on somebody's radar and they start composing an attack that's specifically framed to catch you in it. So it's important to understand there are landmines, the
Mhm.
equivalent of landmines, websites that are set up by hackers that
Yeah,
are designed for you to fall into. There are ads that are bought
mhm,
by hackers that want to pop something up in front of you and distract you and send you along a course.
right.
Uh, and so many things that we're worried about these days end up in
Yeah.
some sort of financial scam.
Like a wide cast one would be, I get all the time, like the Best Buy email, the
Yep.
FedEx email, things like that.
Really, the interesting thing is the amount of coordination and public information that's available on the dark web that
Yeah,
ends up being used against you. Email is going to be the biggest influx. It's
yeah.
going to be your biggest attack vector. That's
Okay,
the attack surface.
okay.
We all get hundreds of emails a day, whether it's to our work email or whether or not we have personal emails. And 80, 90, 95% of it is all spam. And
Yeah,
it's but this a lot of it is targeted not just to get you to click on something, but it's hard to even tell these days what's a legitimate email from your bank and
absolutely.
what isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what's so scary. So it's kind of along those lines. How has this landscape changed in recent years? And we're all online more, we're remote more.
I put it in terms of two major inflection points that have happened. COVID changed an awful lot for the world.
Mhm.
And then in the cybersecurity realm, I say, when we locked down on March 11th in 2020, that was a major change to the entire world.
Okay.
But for my world, the cybersecurity world, a major inflection point was about 3 months later when the Colonial Pipeline attack happened. So all of these people that had been tucked away and had nothing to do saw a hacker get paid $5 million for discovering out of date software, basically, and started looking at their computers as lottery tickets.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And there was a high rise in what we call script kiddie attacks, where basically people started researching and saying, how do I get into hacking?
Wow.
And they started basically copying and pasting attacks.
Okay.
And from June 2020, I mean, the increase in cyber attacks over the last 15 years has been a steady growth, but there was an exponential burst after the Colonial Pipeline hack in 2020, and now with the second inflection point is the availability of large language models and AI. We've all joked about the poorly written Sultan of Brunei emails, that
Yeah.
offer you $1 million. The telltale signs of those are the bad English, the spelling, the grammar issues. With LLM and AI, a lot of those telltale signs of those international based attack emails are going away. So it's getting
Absolutely.
harder and harder to tell when it's a fake email that's trying to get your attention.
Yeah, I think that's I'm receiving I just received one of those emails I think this morning, and it is scary because I know the attacks that you get when you publish a book are amazing, and the emails get more and more friendly, and you start digging into it, and you're like, no, it's a fraudulent company, ignore. So
We're going to talk a lot about AI, but one of the interesting things that I want to mention is that AI is being used. A large target of how the developers are developing AI is that they want to build AI so that it can program future iterations of AI. So while large language models in writing is good for Copilot for Microsoft Office,
sure.
a large focus is being put on development and
Hmm.
analysis of web and digital code. So
Okay.
it's now there are a lot of very good tools that basically you put in a website and you say, analyze this website and duplicate this website. and it will get it down to the pixel. So now, for example, what we call man in the middle attacks, where somebody posts a website that looks like a Microsoft login or
Hmm.
your bank's login, will look exactly like the real thing
Terrifying.
because AI can analyze it and reconstruct it, and it's designed so that you think you're on your bank and
Right.
you give your credentials over to the bad guys.
Got it. Okay. So one of the tips that I've always heard, right, is don't click on the link in the email, but go to the website directly.
I even tell people don't even open emails. One
Okay.
of the things, you
Huh.
know, um, as best as you can, and I'm one of the better advices that we can give is have multiple email addresses and know who you're giving your emails to.
Okay.
So, for example, you don't want to open up an email because information is gathered just by you opening the email.
Right.
Okay. Most emails have tracking cookies or tracking images. So you verified that your email address is real potentially to a
Yeah.
bad guy just
Okay.
by opening it in many cases. But yes, very much so. Like old financial scams.
Yeah.
Don't accept a call that comes in from your bank.
Hmm.
Okay. Don't, if you get an email, don't Google your bank's telephone number. Always dial the number off of the card.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
Subsequently, the same thing applies. And again, we'll get into password managers. This is actually, I'm going to jump ahead. Password managers are very good because password managers can include the links so that password managers actually become your bookmarks
Oh,
or use bookmarks
right.
instead because for example, I saw a hack 2 or 3 years ago where the hackers paid Google to put their fake website. Whenever I typed in, we've seen this with actually they were targeted attacks against military, our
Oh,
U.S. military. They would USAA is an insurance and a bank that serves the military. So does Navy Federal Credit Union.
sure.
And one of the tricks about knowing and being careful and being conscious online is to not Google anything if you're looking for something, because Google sells the first 3 lines of placement.
Yep.
And in this case, the hackers actually paid Google to place their fake version of USAA
Wow.
above the real USAA website.
Holy cow.
And people were clicking it and people were getting logins that looked exactly like USAA. And I spent and not being being a client, but not being a
Right.
supplier or a cybersecurity expert for USA, I still spent half a day reaching out to contacts that I have at USA to alert them of this problem and to tell them to contact their contacts at Google
Right.
and see if they could do something about this paid ad.
Wow. I was just on USAA 2 days ago with my dad, going through his
Yep.
accounts.
It was they had actually hacked a parking lot. I did an investigation in order to get as much information as I could to try to break the chain. We found out it was they had hacked the website of a parking lot business at LAX in California at the LA airport, and they posted up this. They put a man in the middle attack that they hosted on this parking lot. So we also reached out to the parking lot company and had their company pull down their website because the hackers were inside their web server.
Wow.
And that actually broke the chain faster than reaching out to USAA or reaching out to Google
Okay.
because when after about 2 hours they pulled down their website and now the ad that had been targeted from Google, of course the hacker could find another place to host their attacking
Yeah.
website, but that was it at least broke the chain pretty quickly for anybody that was going there and
Uh,
typing in Google and typing in USAA.
yeah. So, Sam, I knew you were going to terrify me by the end of this podcast, but I think I've only asked like 3 questions and I have a ton. So this is I feel like I need a glass of wine or something here. All right. Let's move to the next one. So what is the most common mistake you see families make that leave them vulnerable?
Well, the first thing is that they have to take their cybersecurity seriously.
Yeah.
We were talking in the green room, and you said there are certain things everybody has to have for their financial security, including a will.
Yeah.
The things that don't necessarily rise to the surface, that don't immediately come to us, are
Right.
the things that we should be most concerned about. So, in our office lives, we have IT people in the IT department that send us emails on a regular basis saying, make sure you're 2FA. We enforce 2FA. We enforce, strong and long passwords. We enforce changing passwords. Although that standard is actually changing. We're not saying change passwords that much anymore.
Interesting.
But when we get home, we fall back into old patterns, comfortable patterns, and we aren't as conscious about those things.
Yeah.
And our future, our financial safety for our future, our financial independence, has to do with how we're planning, no matter whether you're 25, 35, or 55.
Yep.
If you're, around here, if you're worried about your future, if you're starting to work towards your future, if you're doing any kind of savings, then your security is important. So taking it seriously and bringing home the lessons that you learn in the office. I Passwords, the big thing that is still a huge problem is reusing passwords. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's absolutely the first thing everybody in cybersecurity talks about. Do not reuse passwords. So, how do you not reuse passwords? You have to get a password manager.
Yeah.
The three things I say about passwords are that they should be long,
Hmm.
strong, and unique, which
Okay.
means six, 8 characters doesn't even cut it anymore. And we'll talk about other things
Yeah.
in a little bit, but long, strong, unique. Every website has to have its own password, unique, because credential stuffing.
Yeah.
If Target's database gets breached and your password at your target.com account gets released onto the dark web,
Right.
you don't want that same password being used on your Walmart, on your Amazon, on
Yeah.
your Citibank, on your retirement accounts, on your health savings accounts,
Right.
things like that. Because then you're exposing your entire digital lives.
So I have to ask then the password managers that are probably like, for example, Google, right? Google has a password manager. Apple now has, like, what are some of the distinctions, recommendations? Do you suggest to pay for a manager outside of those?
A lot of what I preach is based on my professional experiences.
Right.
So I do actually say, to protect your email, you should not be using a free email if you can avoid it.
Okay.
Similarly, I do like password managers that have more features.
Okay.
So I tend to gravitate towards ones that I can use in my business environment for my clients as well. There are
What some of those
specific
be?
uh, Keeper,
Okay.
Bitwarden, One Password, LastPass are all good options.
Okay. Names I all recognize, and just I think people just deflect to the free, it's there.
Well, the real risk with the Google Password Manager, for example,
Hmm.
or the ones that are naturally built in to your browser, is that hackers go for the low hanging fruit.
Got it.
Okay. Windows right now, and for 10 or 15 years, there's been a big battle between Windows users and Mac users. And Mac users, one of the things that they say is that Macs get viruses less.
Mm.
Well, Macs get viruses less because when you've only got 15 to 20% of the market share and the other guy has 70% of the market share, and I can only write so much code, I'm going to target the
Yeah.
70% because my code will have and my attacks will have a higher percentage of effectiveness
Sure.
when somebody clicks on a link.
Okay.
Okay. The same thing is applicable to the password managers that are in your browser. Okay. Because the adoption rate of password managers in the browser is so high.
Hmm.
Plus, also, you have the fact that especially the security inside those password managers was so lax for so long.
Mm.
So, for example, Google, when it first released a password manager, it stored those passwords in unencrypted plain text files.
Oh,
Okay. Which meant a computer, if a hacker gets access, if a hacker is trying to uh, do an attack against you.
yeah.
And one of the steps of that attack is to get you to run any kind of software on your computer.
Hmm.
That attacker is going to run a script that's a high percentage attack that goes to 100 different places in your computer and very quickly looks for things that could be of value. And one of those things is going to be that password file.
Okay.
Okay. They can get that password file in a matter of seconds if they within getting access to your computer. And that's what they do. They say, I'm on your computer, you've given me access to it. They click a link and it runs a program that searches for Chrome passwords, Explorer passwords, passwords. It then searches your downloads file and your documents file and looks for anything that might say credit card or social security number or tax,
Excel spreadsheet with file with passwords on it.
something that says passwords, and it's going to download that to their computer, and it's all going to happen in 5 to 10 seconds.
Holy cow.
So that's one of the real reasons why we suggest using something other than the native browser password manager.
So for someone that's never used what like a LastPass, like that's one that comes up all the time for me. What is the process? Because it seems like this very heavy to do of how do I take all of my passwords and move them into something more secure? Can you walk through what that looks like?
They do try to make it easy. Most of these tools will have the ability, first of all, Google does make it easy to export from that password manager.
Okay.
So they'll export to a CSV, which is a comma separated via file,
Yep.
which is basically plain text,
Yep.
or they'll export to a Excel file,
Right.
and all of these will allow you to import those passwords.
Got it.
It's really, I talk a lot in my work about what I call Newtonian physics. It's the fact that we are all objects in motion, and it does take an external force to get us to move in a different direction.
Sure.
And but password managers, it's funny how convenient they become once you get used to them.
Okay. I have heard that. Yeah. Yep.
And it can replace your bookmarks.
Hmm.
And that's another thing of safety where you're not going to Google and typing in USAA or typing in Amazon and potentially being diverted to some other site. You go to the password manager and you type in Amazon and click, and
Got it.
it knows it'll take you right to the login page. It'll fill in the username that you have saved there. It'll fill in the password that they have saved.
Okay.
Most of them are pretty good, and they'll also help you walk you through the process of changing the passwords. So if
Yeah.
you're using the same password on 20 different sites, it'll say a lot. Some of them, like Bitdefense, LastPass, will scan the dark web and say, "Hey, I found this password
Oh,
that you're using associated with this email. You
okay.
really should go change it."
Okay. Wow. All right. We're going to talk about our kids in a second. Before we do that, you've mentioned this a couple times, free email. Can you talk about maybe some of the potential issues there? And I think there was one in particular you at least brought up to me, and I don't know if you want to mention it on the podcast.
I've gone on record at this one. Free email is tricky. Okay, free email is tricky. There are a number of problems with free email. The first one I talk about is that you are not in control.
Okay.
And this is just one of those larger questions about taking your cybersecurity seriously, and taking your digital life and digital identity seriously. I tell clients and advise anybody that will listen that they need to think critically about their relationships with all of their vendors. And I use the analogy of what I call the chicken sandwich.
Okay.
situation. Put your relationship in your with your vendor in the simplest terms. Okay, when you go for lunch, you go to the local deli, you go to Chick-fil-A, and you say, "I want a chicken sandwich." Okay, are you the person taking the order and supplying the goods? No, that's the vendor that you're talking about.
Hmm.
Are you the person that's handing over money? No, because in a free environment, you're not paying for what you're doing.
Hmm.
Okay, you're not paying for the service. So what are you? If you're not the payer and you're not the vendor, then you're the product.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
and we've so many of us forget that Gmail has basically, we sign over permission for Gmail to use our data to make its stuff better. That includes also using our data and reading our emails. I don't think a person is reading my email, but they're scanning my email for intent,
Hmm.
and they're going to use it to target me for advertising.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
They're now, the with all of the big companies getting into AI, they're using my emails to train their AIs.
Right.
So this brings me back to paying for things in order to keep that privacy. So
Okay.
that's one issue with not paying for things, using free services. The loss of control. Also, for example, Gmail's job is to allow you to trade emails back and forth.
Right.
And if their security standards were too strict, then messages wouldn't get through.
Right.
And then you'd be contacting support, and their support costs would go up for a service that you're not paying for.
Hmm.
So you can't add additional layers, and sometimes their security layers aren't as strict as they could be. Okay. Same thing with Microsoft. When in the corporate environment, we use Microsoft, and then we layer on additional antivirus and anti-spam methods on top of those things. You can't do that with Gmail, which is why you
Okay.
get 100 spam emails a day. So
Right.
there's that additional control over protecting yourself, not just from the vendor, but also from attackers from the outside world. That's the second problem with free. And the third problem with free is that you're beholden to what they call their security standards. And a big problem that we have here in Fairfield County, you and I are both Fairfield County residents, is that our major internet provider over the last 30 years, Optimum,
Yep.
and with Altice, and now back to Optimum, was one of the bigger email providers in the area for 30 years. You
Yep.
would get a free email address, optimum.net.
Right.
And there are a lot of people, especially seniors, that have had these email addresses for 15,
Forever.
20, 30 years, and they're stuck on them. And Optimum, for example, security costs money.
Hmm.
And Optimum has fallen woefully behind with
Wow.
applying security standards. I
Okay.
say with Optimum, for example, and with any free email address that you find yourself on. If there's a Comcast listener I don't happen to know, or Charter off
Yep.
the top of my head, but these are three things that your email should be able to do. Your email should have multi-factor authentication that you can turn on.
Hmm.
It should be able to tell you who's logged in
Yep.
and from where,
Yep.
and you should have the ability to kick someone out based on seeing who's in your account.
Okay.
And Optimum doesn't have either of those three methods. You
Okay.
can, if you change, for example, if a hacker gets access to your optimum.net email address, if you change your password, it doesn't send a command to every session that is logged in that they need to re-log in using the same password. Somebody can continue to look at that email after you have changed the password
Holy cow.
for as long as they refresh the session link once every 24 hours. So you
So where
cannot
do you
actually
go?
so I have said it publicly before, and I will say it again for your listeners. If you are on an optimum.net email address, it represents a clear and present danger to your digital identity
Okay.
if you're using it for anything important.
Got it. So I don't hear as many issues with the Gmail, Yahoo, but still they are.
Gmail does meet those three standards that I
Yeah.
talk about.
Okay.
You can turn on 2FA, and
Yep.
Gmail has a lot of good methods. You can do authentication of a previously known device,
Yeah.
like a password manager. You can do 2FA through SMS messaging. You
Okay.
can do previously, with Android, previously authenticated
Yes.
hardware devices. It'll just like Facebook and Google. If you have those accounts set up, it'll actually put up and just say whether or not you set it up or not. It'll say you're logged in here,
Yes. Yeah.
so we see you trying to log in over there. Is it real?
The locations aren't always accurate, but yes.
But they're close
They're
enough.
close. Yeah.
It'll tell you the difference between uh Fairfield County, Connecticut, and usually it'll tell you the difference between California, but it'll definitely tell you Malaysia
Yeah.
or
Oh, yeah.
um New York City is different from Connecticut. That is clear. It also depends on where your cell phone is. Uh,
Okay.
and we could talk about the fact that Verizon just had an outage of 3 to 4 hours, and anybody who was using text message 2FA was affected by that outage yesterday.
Yeah, that
That
was
was a
literally yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scary. And do you know anything about the outage or?
I haven't gotten too much information, but
Okay.
we got a lot of calls of
Yeah.
people that were using not the pre-authenticated devices, for example, that 2FA generated RSA 6 digit or 8 digit code
Yep.
that we can put into a password manager, but they were just using the 2FA from their SMS,
Okay.
and they couldn't get their SMS messages, so they couldn't get onto their banks. They
Right.
couldn't log into their Amazon accounts
Yeah.
and purchase anything they needed to.
That was crazy.
So there were significant infrastructure issues yesterday.
For sure. Yep. My daughter was freaking out. So let's transition that into the kids and teens. And,
Yep.
what do we need to be aware of? I know every parent listening is terrified of what their kids are scrolling through and what kind of danger it could be bringing in. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. There's so many things to talk. It's such a broad topic. I am not a school psychologist. I'm not a child psychologist. I'm an IT guy. I also happen to be a parent of two young girls.
Yep.
There's so many things. AI is one of my biggest concerns.
Hmm.
I, there were a lot of people when we first had our kids, 10 years ago, who said, I'm choosing not to put pictures of my kids online. And I said, I get that. I'm not going to be scared of those things.
Hmm.
With the rise of generative AI,
Yeah.
now I'm being much more cautious
Okay.
about those images. When it comes to using devices in the home,
Yeah.
and securing those devices, one of the things I try to educate people about is how the internet works and the importance of a link in the chain of how the internet works, which are called DNS servers.
Okay.
And DNS servers are what change the typed English word yahoo.com, google.com into the numbers and zeros and ones that actually represent where the servers are stored.
Okay.
And that's one of the first things, the most important places where I place restrictions. It's where it works in the office and it does work in the home. And it allows you to say, I don't want my kids going to youtube.com, or I
Oh,
don't want my kids going to minecraft.com or roblox.com or tiktok.com. And
okay.
it allows you to short circuit that process as soon as an app reaches out with that name in the code, basically, and says, okay, I need to translate where that .com name is into the zeros and ones of the internet. The system just stops and says, you can't do that. So
Okay.
that's one of the things I like to talk about.
How do you
Um,
do that?
there are tools that you do it either on the device
Okay.
or you do it to the entire network.
Got it.
There are online services, cloud-based services.
Yep.
You may have to get them through a trusted partner like us,
Yep.
or you may be able to get them directly. For example, one system I use is called DNS Filter.
Okay.
I've also been talking with legislators about whether or not we can get the ISPs, because the ISPs are in the DNS process, and the
Okay.
and the ISPs, internet service providers like Optimum, like Verizon, like Charter, like Spectrum, like Xfinity and Comcast. All of these providers already provide that DNS replication services because it creates a faster internet when they have their own DNS servers. So
Mm.
I've been talking to legislators about, can we get the ISPs to offer two, a an unfiltered and a filtered version of the DNS services to help and to put more of that control, because that free router that you get at home from
Mhm.
the ISP
Yep.
is gets its programming from the service provider.
Okay.
So
So it puts more control on the parents.
we want to I always want to put more control in the hands of the person that owns the network, and
Right.
in the home it's the parents.
And is this legislation, is this something that can be done on a state level or?
That's how I'm choosing to work with my advocacy.
Okay.
I've approached state legislators about that.
Okay.
Nothing's come too much yet. They haven't proposed the legislation yet, but I'm trying to educate them about how that process could work.
Fascinating.
And it also and you do have that ability for yourself. You can
Hmm.
choose to do it, but my point is, if it's something that the internet service providers already do,
Yeah.
can't we do something?
Yeah.
There's always research. There are resources. There are companies out there that are trying to provide filtered and safer DNS experiences and trying to put those in the hands of people. We can talk about how we can get more information to your listeners
Yeah. And I guess one
about that.
last question on that. These, like a DNS filter, if you were to like acquire, if you were to, as a parent, to purchase this, is it software that,
There's a couple of different ways to do it.
okay,
And part of it will be how your internet is set up at home, and if you're on that free router, or
sure.
whether or not you've invested in a router that's under your control or not.
Okay. Yep.
That's going to be part of it. It's also going to have to do with how the devices are set up.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get too deep into the nuts and bolts, but there are also local devices that you can also route the traffic to as well.
Okay.
Raspberry Pi devices. If somebody really wanted to get into it, they should Google and this is a terrible thing if it's taken out of context. The name of the software is actually called Pi-hole. But
Okay.
like,
Like
if somebody wanted to,
Piehole.
it's PI, because it's hosted on a small network device called a Raspberry Pi, PI,
Got it.
as in like Pi 3.14159.
Got it.
And then it's the hole, because it's also supposed to be like a black hole for
Okay.
DNS.
Got it.
That's what they're sort of saying. We
What a
can,
cute name.
yeah.
Okay.
It's not as frightening as out of context it sounds.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I know, like you said, that can be a whole other podcast in itself.
Oh, an entire one.
So what about one easy habit? Let's try and get more positive that we can adopt today just to kind of improve our personal cybersecurity.
The two things I'm going to say are password managers,
I knew you were going to say
and,
it.
and making sure 2FA is turned on,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
I'm going to actually throw in two more that are easy.
Yep.
Trying to be conscious of how you're approaching your security, your digital identity, how important take stock. We're doing a lot of things here in January and February at the beginning of the year. Let's take stock of what's important to us, okay? Where we are, what we're using,
Hmm.
and what are the things I should be conscious of.
Yeah.
And the third thing that I know there's a lot of people out there that are single. So use your trusted partners.
Yeah.
Okay. So many of the times when people get hacked, they're alone.
Hmm.
and they get emotionally and verbally manipulated over the phone,
Right.
or first, the first link in the chain is I got an email or something popped up, and it's, oh my God, Microsoft is telling me there's something wrong with my computer. I've got to call these people.
Yeah.
So many of those links in the chain of an attack
Yeah.
can be short circuited by merely sending a picture to a friend or a trusted partner. If you make friends with your local IT guy, send him a text message and say, is this legitimate?
Right.
Nobody's going to say, I'm not going to answer that question unless put
Yes.
20 bucks, send me a Starbucks $5 Starbucks gift card. you
Yeah.
know I'm going to say, no, that's absolutely not legitimate. I've got an elderly client that probably sends me an email once a month,
Yeah. You must get
and
it all the time.
it warms my heart to
Yeah.
tell her, you are so smart for just asking the question,
Yeah.
because the one click,
Mm.
one link, one email, one program that gets run,
Yeah.
one bad click, and so it starts the chain that starts the ball
Yeah.
rolling downhill, the boulder rolling downhill, and that one neuron firing that could short circuit it is very important.
I was sharing with you that I started going down this road last year. My husband and I were both working from home, and I got a phone call, and they were from the Connecticut courthouse telling me that I had not come to jury duty and that I had to pay a fine, and I had to come down to the town of Bridgeport to pay the fine, or I could pay it over the phone. And I was arguing with them because I'd just been to jury duty like a couple months before. I'm like, how is this possible? And he was rambling off this code full of letters and numbers, and it was a huge noisy background. And I'm arguing with him and arguing with him. And as I'm doing it, I'm kind of speaking to my husband in the other room. And he finally looked at me and he's like, hang up the phone. And I was like, okay. And I called the town of Fairfield and I said, this is what happened to me. And they said, you're the fifth call this week complaining about that.
Yeah.
So shame on me.
But remember that the hackers, if we weren't creatures of community
Yeah.
and we weren't hardwired, if people like us weren't hardwired to trust people at face value,
Yeah.
plus they know, so the psychological tricks. As you said, there's a lot of background noise. Somebody was telling me, I was watching a video of, if merely holding up a piece of paper and making this noise
Yeah.
triggers something in your brain that says, I'm really working, I'm really at a desk, and I really have something in front of me that
Right.
tells me this is real.
Right.
And so they know all the psychological tricks. The other thing, I spoke in front of the wise men in Westport,
Hmm.
and I started my talk with them by making everybody stand up and raise their hand and say, I will not be embarrassed if I get hacked.
Mm,
Because
it is.
they are good at what they do. It's how they make money,
Yeah.
the bad guys. And the real problem is if we get embarrassed,
Yeah.
at the thought of that I might have gotten taken advantage of, it could stop us from reaching out for help that would stop even further links in the chain. If somebody gets into your Citibank and finds $5,000,
Yeah.
but you also had a Merrill Lynch account under the same email address and password that had $50,000, then if you don't ask for help after the first attack, you are so much more susceptible to the second. And they will release the information, and then they will come back. And if they catch you once, even in clicking on an email, even if they don't actually get money from you, they will come back again, and they
Back.
will come back
Okay.
again.
Okay.
I had a client that was caught in the Robinhood breach, the investing app breach a
Yeah.
couple of years ago. His spam attacks went up 100-fold. He
Oh,
went from getting 1,000 emails a day in his business account to getting almost 100,000 emails, because his email address was tracked, and they said, oh, he's on this specific app, he's got to have disposable income and large investments.
Sure.
So he's a rich target. We're going to go after him. So it's so important to be mindful, to have that guard up.
Yep.
Those are the best pieces of advice.
Okay.
And don't be scared to ask for help.
No, and I think that's a very good point. And one of the questions here I have is, but we've kind of answered it, but I'll highlight it is if we know individuals that, in the older generation, especially if they're single, we need to have these conversations. I know a lot of individuals that are on optimum.net, and I know, we need to talk about the two-factor authentication because some firms mandate it, but others don't. And so I think that that's important. Thank you. So, what tools do you recommend out if there's anything else outside of what we've talked about? I don't know if there might be. We've gone in a lot of
Password
directions.
manager is an important one.
Yep.
2FA is an important one. That DNS filter is a very critical way to the way we protect our clients.
Okay.
Um, we feel strongly about email protections.
Okay.
Also how you think about your email. One of the ways I advocate is I tell people they should actually have three different emails,
I
and
was going to
many
circle
people
back
have.
with you on that and ask you how many you have.
I have way more than three, but really the average person is going to have a public facing sort of work email
Yep.
anyway. I think they should have a very, very private email
Okay.
that only specific friends and family
Mm,
have.
got it.
And then you should have a complete throwaway junk email address. And I don't want to go too far afield, but I will tell you if you're interested in looking for ways to protect your email and you insist on using Google and Gmail, you should research plus addressing. It's a way that you can actually give out different email addresses and you can then filter out when those
Mm,
email addresses get used. So, for example, we do the dog festival here in Westport from the Chamber of Commerce, and Anderson Window always comes, and I always put my name in their raffle,
yeah.
and I always use my email address plus before the at Gmail for which is my junk address.
Yep.
Plus Anderson Windows. So like just Google plus addressing,
Got it.
do some research, or at the end we're going to give out my contact information, and
Yeah.
once a year I post a video about how plus addressing works,
Okay.
and we'll do that.
That would be fantastic. Thank you. And I'm happy to link anything that you want me to in the show notes. The follow-up question that I had to this, I'm totally blanking out.
Separate emails, because for example, one of the big risks in digital life in the future
Yeah.
is AI,
Mhm.
and whether or not people are going to try to convince you that it's happening now. It has always happened. People get emails. Oh, I'm traveling and I got stuck.
Yeah.
Can you wire me some money?
Right.
Now with voice cloning, you're going to get phone calls from your kids that say, "I'm stuck. The cell phone battery's about to die. Can you sell me some money?"
Oh
In
gosh, yeah.
fact, you know what? Since my battery's about to die, Zell the friend I'm with,
Right.
and here's the address. And I really live in a certain amount of fear about the next evolution of that, where people are sending proof of life photos
Yeah.
that are AI generated.
Yep.
So, we talked a little bit about security, have passwords in your communication with your kids. And also, if your kids if you set up a private email setup for your family
Hmm.
to correspond with your kids, especially as they grow and go into teenagers and go away to college. If your kid sends you an email at work,
Yeah.
you're going to be suspect. That's the point of having different emails for those family relatives.
Okay.
Um,
That makes sense.
and also, social media, the attacks are going to come in for, related to kids on social media.
Right.
Your kids hacks or kids accounts on Facebook are going to get, or Instagram are going to get hacked. And then you're going to get the message. That's what we call blast radius, where one account gets hacked and then they try to get everybody
Okay.
that knows that account to either
Yeah.
fall for another hack and give over their credentials, or to try to do some sort of financial
Yeah.
scam.
I should also mention that was what I was thinking of before. I'm not an insurance specialist. However, I would say that when you look at your homeowner's insurance policy, umbrella policy, a lot of them now have cybersecurity within them, so some type of protection. And so I think that would be important, especially if you haven't looked at your policy in a number of years.
We'll talk about the business side of that.
Yeah.
I talk about that a lot with my clients. The
Okay.
fact that 10 years ago it was general liability, and now it's become errors and omissions is the insurance you have to have. And the
Yeah.
third one of those lists is going to be cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is important that your homeowners and umbrella policies do cover.
Yep.
For you to understand, so for example, if you're going to start investing in crypto, you have to understand whether or not your specific cybersecurity home insurance policy would cover a crypto loss.
We cover all.
Because
Yeah.
you want to see accounts drained, especially, here on the Gold Coast. So many people dabble and they blink and their accounts are just empty.
Yeah. I think I know a story of someone in the area that happened to last year. It's very scary.
Yeah.
So,
And
um,
bank transfers, if they're sent via wire, if you wanted to wire $100,000, you may have like a 24-hour period when you can catch it. A
mhm.
$50,000 crypto transfer is gone in seconds.
Right.
And there ain't no pulling that back.
Yeah. Well, Sam, I feel like you have scared the bejesus out of myself and everyone else listening, but it's such an important topic. And yeah, you and I were joking about it. This is just like talking about, do you have the appropriate insurance? Do you have the appropriate estate plan with a will? We all know we need to focus on it, and yet, we live busy lives and it falls to the wayside.
My goal is not to scare anybody. We should not all turn off our computers and
Yeah.
unplug our routers. I've got one client that unplugs her router at night, every night. I'm not trying to scare people off the internet. What I am trying to say is that 95 to even 98% of the attacks are stopped with three things:
Hmm.
strong passwords, use of a password manager,
Yeah.
meaning the use of 2FA,
Yep.
and just slowing our lives down a little bit and thinking critically about the things that are being put in front of us.
Right.
Really, that'll stop so many things. We do have to focus on our children
Yeah.
and our elderly. They are the most susceptible.
Absolutely.
And I do think that more needs to be done uh, on the advocacy and legislative sides to protect those people. It's a
Absolutely.
shame that more isn't being done yet. And I try to work with local legislators in order to do those things.
Yeah.
AI generative images is a big focus for me right now in my advocacy work. And so be a part of a community. I went to an event that we do here in Westport, Connecticut. There is a group called OK to Delay.
Okay.
There's another group that's called Wait Until 8. These are groups that are trying to protect our children
Sure.
from what we think could be the deleterious effects of social media and the effect on literal effect on the brain
Yeah.
of smartphones, apps. The other thing I say is educate yourself. There's a psychologist and an educator named Jonathan Haidt that has great done is doing great research.
Okay. Great.
If you're worried about your children,
Yeah.
he wrote a book called The Anxious Generation that
Okay.
talks about the how the world has changed since the introduction of the iPhone in 20 or even like iPhone 4 with the camera in like 2010.
Right.
So use your resources, educate yourself, and like I said, talk to other. When it comes to the kids, talk to other parents, get involved in your community, look for those resources. And when it comes to security, look for resources like IT vendors like us. We
Okay.
aren't going to turn people away. Twice a year, somebody walks into my office and says they got hacked, and on a personal note, not on a business note.
Right.
And we don't turn them away. We do our best to help as best as we can,
Okay.
because we believe in helping the community.
Yeah.
So, don't be afraid to ask for help and reach out for community help.
Okay.
Those are the best recommendations I can make.
Well, Sam, thank you. And thank you for your efforts with the legislation. You have to keep me in the loop on how that's going.
Absolutely.
Is there any contact information you want to reference right now?
Our new website, your tech department, is in the middle of a rebrand to your cyber team, yourcyber.team. We also run networking and advocacy, education, outreach through our Your Cyber News brand.
Okay.
We're launching a new website for advocacy and education about that, keeping people abreast on new hacks and new scans through those methods. We're sign up for the newsletter there,
And what website is that?
yourcyber.news. So
Yourcyber.news.
the
Got
business side is yourcyber.team,
it. Okay.
and the education and advocacy side we do through yourcyber.news. We're launching that probably by the time anybody's listening to this
Oh, great. Look
to
at our
the
timing.
podcast.
Okay. I'll put that in the show notes.
Sounds good.
Sam, thank
And they
you.
can also reach out to me. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn as Sam Disraelly.
Okay.
The business is there as your tech department or your cyber team, and happy to advise and educate. Again, the community aspect is something we feel very strongly about.
No, I know you do, and you've already volunteered to do something in person here in our office. I love it. And then the next podcast is going to be you and I talking about the business side. So everyone can
Sounds good.
stay tuned for that next episode.
Part two.
Part two. Sam, not many people get a part one and part two. So that's, I mean, I
I'm
hope you understand this is
I
I
don't think it's not me. It's just an important topic, and I'm happy to help you and your listeners.
well, thank you for all the insight. There's a lot of information that I got out of this today, and I'm pretty sure I can say that the listeners did too. So thank you.
Always happy to help. Thanks for having me.